Chapter 8, Part 1 of the Deluge, Volume 1. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Recording by K. Hand. The Deluge, Volume 1 by Henryk Sienkiewicz. Translated by Jeremiah Curtin. Chapter 8, Part 1. Pan Volodyovski, a famous and seasoned soldier, though a young man, was living, as we have said, in Patsuneli with the patriarch of the place, Pakosh Gashtovt, who had the reputation of being the wealthiest noble among all the small brotherhood of Lauda. In fact, he had dowered richly with good silver his 3 daughters who had married Bertrams, for he gave to each one 100 thalers, besides cattle, and an outfit so handsome that not one noble woman or family had a better. The other 3 daughters were at home unmarried, and they nursed Volodyovski, whose arm was well at one time and sore at another when wet weather appeared in the world. All the Lauda people were occupied greatly with that arm, for Lauda men had seen it working at Shoklov and Shepel, and in general they were of the opinion that it would be difficult to find a better in all Lithuania. The young colonel, therefore, was surrounded with exceeding honor in all the neighborhoods. The Gashtovts, the Domosheviches, the Gotsieviches, the Steichens, and with them others, sent faithfully to Patsuneli fish, mushrooms, and game for Volodyovski, and hay for his horses, so that the knight and his servants might want for nothing. Whenever he felt worse, they vied with one another in going to Poniev for a barber. [Footnote: A barber in those parts at that time did duty for a surgeon.] In a word, all strove to be first in serving him. Pan Volodyovski was so much at ease that though he might have had more comforts in Kyedani and a noted physician at his call, still he remained in Patsuneli. Old Gashtovt was glad to be his host, and almost blew away the dust from before him, for it increased his importance extremely in Lauda that he had a guest so famous that he might have added the importance of Radzivill himself. After the defeat and expulsion of Kmita, the nobility, in love with Volodyovski, searched in their own heads for counsel, and formed the project of marrying him to Panna Aleksandra. "Why seek a husband for her through the world?" said the old men at a special meeting at which they discussed this question, "since that traitor has so befouled himself with infamous deeds that if he is now alive he should be delivered to the hangman. The lady must cast him out of her heart, for thus was provision made in the will by a special clause. Let Pan Volodyovski marry her. As guardians we can permit that, and she will thus find an honorable cavalier, and we a neighbor and leader." When this proposition was adopted unanimously, the old men went first to Volodyovski, who, without thinking long, agreed to everything, and then to "the lady," who with still less hesitation opposed it decisively. "My grandfather alone had the right to dispose of Lyubich," said she, "and the property cannot be taken from Pan Kmita until the courts punish him with loss of life. And as to my marrying, do not even mention it. I have too great sorrow on my mind to be able to think of such a thing. I have cast that man out of my heart, but this one, even though the most worthy, bring not hither, for I will not receive him." There was no answer to such a resolute refusal, and the nobles returned home greatly disturbed. Less disturbed was Pan Volodyovski, and least of all the young daughters of Gashtovt, Turka, Maryska, and Zonia. They were all well grown, blooming maidens, with hair like flax, eyes like violets, and broad shoulders. In general the Patsuneli girls were famed for beauty; when they went in a flock to church they were like flowers of the field. Besides, old Gashtovt spared no expense on the education of his daughters. The organist from Mitruny had taught them reading and church hymns, and the eldest, Turka, to play on the lute. Having kind hearts, they nursed Volodyovski sedulously, each striving to surpass the others in watchfulness and care. People said that Maryska was in love with the young knight, but the whole truth was not in that talk, for all 3 of them, not she alone, were desperately in love with Pan Michael. He loved them too beyond measure, especially Maryska and Zonia, for Turka had the habit of complaining too much of the faithlessness of men. It happened often in the long winter evenings that old Gashtovt, after drinking his punch, went to bed, and the maidens with Pan Michael sat by the chimney, the charming Terka spinning flax, mild Maryska amusing herself with picking down, and Zonia reeling thread from the spindle into skeins. But when Volodyovski began to tell of the wars or of wonders which he had seen in the great houses of magnates, work ceased, the girls gazed at him as at a rainbow, and one would cry out in astonishment, "Oh, I do not live in the world! Oh, my dears!" And another would say, "I shall not close an eye the whole night." Volodyovski, as he returned to health and began at times to use his sword with perfect freedom, was more joyous and told stories more willingly. A certain evening they were sitting as usual after supper in front of the chimney, from beneath which the light fell sharply on the entire dark room. They began to chat; the girls wanted stories, and Volodyovski begged Terka to sing something with the lute. "Sing something yourself," answered she, pushing away the instrument which Volodyovski was handing her. "I have work. Having been in the world, you must have learned many songs." "True, I have learned some; let it be so to day. I will sing first, and you afterward. Your work will not run away. If a woman had asked you, you would not have refused; you are always opposed to men." "For they deserve it." "And do you disdain me too?" "Oh, why should I? But sing something." Volodyovski touched the lute; he assumed a comic air, and began to sing in falsetto, "I have come to such places where no girl will have me." "Oh, that is untrue for you," interrupted Maryska, blushing as red as a raspberry. "That's a soldier's song," said Volodyovski, "which we used to sing in winter quarters, wishing some good soul to take pity on us." "I would be the first to take pity on you." "Thanks to you. If that is true, then I have no reason to sing longer, and I will give the lute into worthier hands." Terka did not reject the instrument this time, for she was moved by Volodyovski's song, in which there was more cunning indeed than truth. She struck the strings at once, and with a simpering mien began, "For berries of elder go not to the green wood; trust not a mad dog, believe not a young man. Each man in his heart bears rank poison; if he says that he loves thee, say no." Volodyovski grew so mirthful that he held his sides from laughter, and cried out, "All the men are traitors? But the military, my benefactress." Panna Terka opened her mouth wider and sang with redoubled energy, "Far worse than mad dogs are they, far worse, oh, far worse." "Do not mind Terka, she is always that way," said Marysia. [Footnote: Marysia and Maryska are both diminutives of Maria, or Maria or Mary, and are used without distinction by the author. There are in Polish 8 or 10 other variants of the same name.] End footnote. "Why not mind?" asked Volodyovski, "when she speaks so ill of the whole military order that from shame I know not whither to turn my eyes." "You want me to sing, and then make sport of me and laugh at me," said Terka, pouting. "I do not attack the singing, but the cruel meaning of it for the military," answered the knight. "As to the singing, I must confess that in Warsaw I have not heard such remarkable trills. All that would be needed is to dress you in trousers. You might sing at St. Yan's, which is the cathedral church, and in which the king and queen have their box." "Why dress her in trousers?" asked Zonia, the youngest, made curious by mention of Warsaw, the king, and the queen. "For in Warsaw women do not sing in the choir, but men and young boys, the men with voices so deep that no aurochs could bellow like them, and the boys with voices so thin that on a violin no sound could be thinner. I heard them many a time when we came, with our great and lamented voevoda of Rus, to the election of our present gracious lord. It is a real wonder, so that the soul goes out of a man. There is a host of musicians there, Forster, famous for his subtle trills, and Capua, and Gian Battista, and Ellert, a master at the lute, and Marek, and Michalewski, beautiful composers. When all these are performing together in the church, it is as if you were listening to the choirs of seraphim in the flesh." "Oh, that is as true as if living," said Marysia, placing her hands together. "And the king, have you seen him often?" asked Zonia. "I have spoken with him as with you. After the battle of Berestechko he pressed my head. He is a valiant lord, and so kind that whoso has once seen him must love him." "We love him without having seen him. Has he the crown always on his head?" "If he were to go around every day in the crown, his head would need to be iron. The crown rests in the church, from which its importance increases. But his grace the king wears a black cap studded with diamonds, from which light flashes through the whole castle. They say that the castle of the king is even grander than that at Kyedani?" "That at Kyedani? The Kyedani castle is a mere plaything in comparison. The king's castle is a tremendous building, all walled in so that you cannot see a stick of wood. Around are 2 rows of chambers, one more splendid than the other. In them you can see different wars and victories painted with brushes on the wall, such as the battles of Sigismund III. and Vladislav. A man could not satisfy himself with looking at them, for everything is as if living. The wonder is that they do not move, and that those who are fighting do not shout. But not even the best artist can paint men to shout. Some chambers are all gold, chairs and benches covered with brocade or cloth of gold, tables of marble and alabaster, and the caskets, bottle cases, clocks showing the hour of day and night, could not be described on an ox hide. The king and queen walk through those chambers and delight themselves in plenty. In the evening they have a theatre for their still greater amusement." "What is a theatre?" "How can I tell you? It is a place where they play comedies and exhibit Italian dances in a masterly manner. It is a room so large that no church is the equal of it, all with beautiful columns. On one side sit those who wish to see, and on the other the arts are exhibited. Curtains are raised and let down; some are turned with screws to different sides. Darkness and clouds are shown at one moment, at another pleasant light. Above is the sky with the sun or the stars; below you may see at times hell dreadful." "Oh, God save us!" cried the girls. "With devils. Sometimes the boundless sea, on it ships and sirens. Some persons come down from the skies, others rise out of the earth." "But I should not like to see hell!" cried Zonia, "and it is a wonder to me that people do not run away from such a terrible sight." "Not only do they not run away, but they applaud from pleasure," said Volodyovski, "for it is all pretended, not real, and those who take farewell do not go away. There is no evil spirit in the affair, only the invention of men. Even bishops come with his grace the king, and various dignitaries who go with the king afterward and sit down to a feast before sleeping." "And what do they do in the morning and during the day?" "That depends on their wishes. When they rise in the morning they take a bath. There is a room in which there is no floor, only a tin tank shining like silver, and in the tank water." "Water in a room? Have you heard?" "It is true, and it comes and goes as they wish. It can be warm or altogether cold, for there are pipes with spigots running here and there. Turn a spigot and the water runs till it is possible to swim in the room as in a lake. No king has such a castle as our gracious lord, that is known, and foreign proverbs tell the same. Also no king reigns over such a worthy people, for though there are various polite nations on earth, still God in his mercy has adorned ours beyond others." "Our king is happy!" sighed Terka. "It is sure that he would be happy were it not for unfortunate wars which press down the Commonwealth in return for our discords and sins. All this rests on the shoulders of the king, and besides at the diets they reproach him for our faults. And why is he to blame because people will not obey him? Grievous times have come on the country, such grievous times as have not been hitherto. Our most despicable enemy now despises us who till recently carried on victorious wars against the Emperor of Turkey. This is the way that God punishes pride. Praise be to him that my arm works well in its joints, for it is high time to remember the country and move to the field. 'Tis a sin to be idle in time of such troubles." "Do not mention going away." "It is difficult to do otherwise. It is pleasant for me here among you, but the better it is, the worse it is. Let men in the diet give wise reasons, but a soldier longs for the field. While there is life there is service. After death God, who looks into the heart, will reward best those who serve not for advancement but through love of the country, and indeed the number of such is decreasing continually, and that is why the black hour has come." Marysia's eyes began to grow moist; at last they were filled with tears which flowed down her rosy cheeks. "You will go and forget us, and we shall pine away here. Who in this place will defend us from attack?" "I go, but I shall preserve my gratitude. It is rare to find such honest people as in Patsuneli. Are you always afraid of this Kmita?" "Of course. Mothers frighten their children with him as with a werewolf." "He will not come back, and even if he should he will not have with him those wild fellows, who, judging from what people say, were worse than he. It is a pity indeed that such a good soldier stained his reputation and lost his property." "And the lady." "And the lady. They say much good in her favor." "Poor thing! For whole days she just cries and cries." "Hm!" said Volodyovski. "But is she not crying for Kmita?" "Who knows?" replied Marysia. "So much the worse for her, for he will not come back. The hetman sent home a part of the Lauda men, and those forces are here now. We wanted to cut him down at once without the court. He must know that the Lauda men have returned, and he will not show even his nose." "Likely our men must march again," said Terka, "for they received only leave to come home for a short time." "Eh!" said Volodyovski. "The hetman let them come, for there is no money in the treasury. It is pure despair. When people are most needed they have to be sent away. But good night! It is time to sleep, and let none of you dream of Pan Kmita with a fiery sword." Volodyovski rose from the bench and prepared to leave the room, but had barely made a step toward the closet when suddenly there was a noise in the entrance and a shrill voice began to cry outside the door, "Hi there! For God's mercy! Open quickly, quickly!" The girls were terribly frightened. Volodyovski sprang for his sabre to the closet, but had not been able to get it when Terka opened the door. An unknown man burst into the room and threw himself at the feet of the knight. "Rescue, serene Colonel! The lady is carried away." "What lady?" "In Vodokty." "Kmita!" cried Volodyovski. "Kmita!" screamed the girls. "Kmita!" repeated the messenger. "Who art thou?" asked Volodyovski. "The manager in Vodokty." "We know him," said Terka. "He brought herbs for you." Meanwhile the drowsy old Gashtovt came forth from behind the stove, and in the door appeared two attendants of Pan Volodyovski, whom the uproar had drawn into the room. "Saddle the horses!" cried Volodyovski. "Let one of you hurry to the Bertrams, the other give a horse to me." "I have already been at the Bertrams," said the manager, "for they are nearer to us. They sent me to your grace." "When was the lady carried away?" asked Volodyovski. "Just now. The servants are fighting yet. I rushed for a horse." Old Gashtovt rubbed his eyes. "What's that? The lady carried off?" "Yes, Kmita carried her off," answered Volodyovski. "Let us go to the rescue." Then he turned to the messenger. "Hurry to the Domasheviches. Let them come with muskets." "Now, my kids," cried the old man suddenly to his daughters, "hurry to the village. Wake up the nobles. Let them take their sabres. Kmita has carried off the lady. Is it possible? God forgive him, the murderer, the ruffian! Is it possible?" "Let us go to rouse them," said Volodyovski. "That will be quicker. Come, the horses are ready. I hear them." In a moment they mounted, as did also the two attendants, Ogarek and Sirotz. All pushed on their way between the cottages of the village, striking the doors and windows and crying with sky piercing voices, "To your sabres! To your sabres! The lady of Vodokty is carried away! Kmita is in the neighborhood!" Hearing these cries, this or that man rushed forth from his cottage, looked to see what was happening, and when he had learned what the matter was, fell to shouting himself, "Kmita is in the neighborhood! The lady is carried away!" And shouting in this fashion he rushed headlong to the outbuildings to saddle his horse, or to his cottage to feel in the dark for his sabre on the wall. Every moment more voices cried, "Kmita is in the neighborhood!" There was a stir in the village, lights began to shine, the cry of women was heard, the barking of dogs. At last the nobles came out on the road, some mounted, some on foot. Above the multitude of heads glittered in the night sabres, pikes, darts, and even iron forks. Volodyovski surveyed the company, sent some of them immediately in different directions, and moved forward himself with the rest. The mounted men rode in front, those on foot followed, and they marched toward Volmontovichi to join the Bertrams. The hour was 10 in the evening, and the night clear, though the moon had not risen. Those of the nobles whom the grand hetman had sent recently from the war dropped into ranks at once. The others, namely the infantry, advanced with less regularity, making a clatter with their weapons, talking and yawning aloud, at times cursing that devil of a Kmita who had robbed them of pleasant rest. In this fashion they reached Volmontovichi, at the edge of which an armed band pushed out to meet them. "Halt! Who goes?" called voices from that band. "The Gashtovts." "We are the Bertrams. The Domasheviches have come already." "Who is leading you?" asked Volodyovski. "Yuzva, the Footless, at the service of the colonel." "Have you news?" "He took her to Lyubich. They went through the swamp to avoid Volmontovichi." "To Lyubich?" asked Volodyovski in wonder. "Can he think of defending himself there? Lyubich is not a fortress, is it?" "It seems he trusts in his strength. There are 200 with him. No doubt he wants to take the property from Lyubich. They have wagons and a band of led horses. It must be that he did not know of our return from the army, for he acts very boldly." "That is good for us," said Volodyovski. "He will not escape this time. How many guns have you?" "We, the Butryms, have 30; the Domasheviches twice as many." "Very good. Let 50 men with muskets go with you to defend the passage in the swamps, quickly. The rest will come with me. Remember the axes." According to command. There was a movement. The little division under Yuzva the Footless went forward at a trot to the swamp. A number of tens of Butryms who had been sent for the other nobles now came up. "Are the Gostsyeviches to be seen?" asked Volodyovski. "Yes, Colonel, praise be to God!" cried the newly arrived. "The Gostsyeviches are coming; they can be heard through the woods. You know that they carried her to Lyubich?" "I know. He will not go far with her." There was indeed one danger to his insolent venture on which Kmita had not reckoned. He knew not that a considerable force of the nobles had just returned home. He judged that the villages were as empty as at the time of his first day in Lyubich, while on the present occasion, counting the Gostsyeviches without the Stakins, who could not come up in season, Volodyovski was able to lead against him about 300 sabres held by men accustomed to battle and trained. In fact, more and more nobles joined Volodyovski as he advanced. At last came the Gostsyeviches, who had been expected till that moment. Volodyovski drew up the division, and his heart expanded at sight of the order and ease with which the men stood in ranks. At the first glance it was clear that they were soldiers, not ordinary untrained nobles. Volodyovski rejoiced for another reason: he thought to himself that soon he would lead them to more distant places. They moved then on a swift march toward Lyubich by the pine woods through which Kmita had rushed the winter before. It was well after midnight. The moon sailed out at last in the sky, and lighting the woods, the road, and the marching warriors, broke its pale rays on the points of the pikes, and was reflected on the gleaming sabres. The nobles talked in a low voice of the unusual event which had dragged them from their beds. "Various people have been going around here," said one of the Domasheviches. "We thought they were deserters, but they were surely his spies." "Of course! Every day strange minstrels used to visit Vodokty as if for alms," said the others. "And what kind of soldiers has Kmita?" "The servants in Vodokty said they are Cossacks. It is certain that Kmita has made friends with Hovanski or Zolotarenko. Hitherto he was a murderer, now he is an evident traitor." "How could he bring Cossacks thus far?" "With such a great band it is not easy to pass. Our first good company would have stopped him on the road." "Well, they might go through the forests. Besides, are there few lords travelling with domestic Cossacks? Who can tell them from the enemy? If these men are asked, they will say that they are domestic Cossacks." "He will defend himself," said one of the Gostsyeviches, "for he is a brave and resolute man; but our colonel will be a match for him. The Butryms too have vowed that even if they have to fall one on the other he will not leave there alive. They are the most bitter against him." "But if we kill him, from whom will they recover their losses? Better take him alive and give him to justice." "What is the use in thinking of courts now when all have lost their heads? Do you know that people say war may come from the Swedes?" "May God preserve us from that! The Moscow power and Hmelnitski at present; only the Swedes are wanting, and then the last day of the Commonwealth." At this moment Volodyovski riding in advance turned and said, "Quiet there, gentlemen!" The nobles grew silent, for Lyubich was in sight. In a quarter of an hour they had come within less than 40 rods of the building. All the windows were illuminated; the light shone into the yard, which was full of armed men and horses. Nowhere sentries, no precautions. It was evident that Kmita trusted too much in his strength. When he had drawn still nearer, Pan Volodyovski with one glance recognized the Cossacks against whom he had warred so much during the life of the great Yeremi, and later under Radzivill. "If those are strange Cossacks, then that ruffian has passed the limit." He looked further, brought his whole party to a halt. There was a terrible bustle in the court. Some Cossacks were giving light with torches; others were running in every direction, coming out of the house and going in again, bringing out things, packing bags into the wagons; others were leading horses from the stable, driving cattle from the stalls. Cries, shouts, commands crossed one another in every direction. The gleam of torches lighted as it were the moving of a tenant to a new estate on St. John's Eve. Kryshtof, the oldest among the Domasheviches, pushed up to Volodyovski and said, "They want to pack all Lyubich into wagons." "They will take away," answered Volodyovski, "neither Lyubich nor their own skins. I do not recognize Kmita, who is an experienced soldier; there is not a single sentry." "Because he has great force, it seems to me more than 300 strong. If we had not returned, he might have passed with the wagons through all the villages." "Is this the only road to the house?" asked Volodyovski. "The only one, for in the rear are ponds and swamps." "That is well. Dismount!" Obedient to this command, the nobles sprang from their saddles. The rear ranks of infantry deployed in a long line, and began to surround the house and the buildings. Volodyovski with the main division advanced directly on the gate. "Wait the command!" said he, in a low voice. "Fire not before the order." A few tens of steps only separated the nobles from the gate when they were seen at last from the yard. Men sprang at once to the fence, bent forward, and peering carefully into the darkness, called threateningly, "Hei! Who are there?" "Halt!" cried Volodyovski. "Fire!" Shots from all the guns which the nobles carried thundered together, but the echo had not come back from the building when the voice of Volodyovski was heard again, "On the run!" "Kill! Slay!" cried the loud men, rushing forward like a torrent. CHAPTER IX.